There we go. I didn't forget. So welcome everyone to making the most of BC Buy Local Week. It's coming up. I think we are less than 2 weeks away. I think it was 2 weeks on Monday. And we run Buy Local Week the first week in December every year. So the dates are slightly different. Often we have a few days in November included in there. And the reason is because we try to couch it in and around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, because there is a lot more media interest in local shopping and why we should try to make sure that we're capturing those online dollars if they're being spent on Cyber Monday, and discourage people from crossing the border to do their shopping. I guess people who are closer to the border might do that. But we also call it cross-border shopping online. You can be doing a lot of shopping that isn't local online, and increasingly businesses are online, and we're trying to capture some of that market. So that's why the timing is the way it is. November 27th is actually Cyber Monday, and it follows Black Friday. And we try to do some social media and press around Black Friday as well. So just to, just so we kind of get to know who's in the room before we do our intros, if you wouldn't mind, just throw into the chat what is important to you or your business about local. I'm always curious to hear, and we'll do it too. Molly is my co-presenter here from Crisp. You're called Crisp, not Crisp Media anymore, but Crisp. And she's gonna present on digital marketing a little bit later, but we'll do it too. But just anything that is important to you about local. So for me, I guess the best thing about it is it's about the people. It's like the human side behind it. And that it's always really about friends and neighbors who own businesses and their real stories of their family. Molly says supporting local economy, eating locally produced food. Yep. Susan, elevating the local economy through local connections, local economic impact. Absolutely. We're all about that. CAF administration. I'm sure you have a more personal name than that. Thanks for being here. Connecting with the community. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a way to connect and impact the community. So love that. Thanks for throwing in some of your thoughts. So I'm calling in from East Vancouver, my home office. Hopefully it won't be too distracting. My son is getting ready for his new job, so he might walk up and down the stairs once or twice. But I'm here in East Van. We work out of a downtown office in East Vancouver, and it is on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And beyond acknowledging that this is their stolen land, we are trying to do all we can as an organization and within our sphere of influence with small businesses and local businesses to work on economic reconciliation work, particularly implementation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission Action Item 92, which calls on corporate Canada to do various things, educate themselves and their staff, and work towards inclusion in the economy. And we're doing various things to work on that as much as we can, and hope that you are too in your businesses. I think sometimes that just the way it's worded, corporate Canada, makes it sound like, oh, that's the TSX, that's like somewhere else, but that is also all of us. And so, I get that being a small business owner, you're already maxed, but I think we're all trying to grapple with, what can we do to be part of moving reconciliation into action. So our partners on the Buy Local campaign this year, these are some of our partners. The rest are listed under our website at bcbuylocal.com, but we really want to thank our highest level partners for helping us do this work every year. It's only in partnership with many organizations across the province that we can make this work and make it free, all the resources, print and otherwise, free to local businesses. So today, here's our agenda. I'm going to get you out of here on time, and I'm going to give a little bit about Loco, just so you understand who we are as an organization. We're going to just do a quick round of intros, and then cover what the impacts of local business are. Sometimes I get tired of kind of going over the stats and facts, but it never ceases to amaze me that, you know, local businesses sometimes are afraid to talk about their impacts because they don't understand, maybe they don't have local inventory, or, you know, don't really understand where the impacts come from. And so we try to ground you in that, so you feel more empowered to talk about your impacts, think about like which of your impacts you want to include in your marketing. And then also you can educate your staff about what those impacts are if you have staff, and if you're talking to customers. We're going to do an exercise just to get you thinking through what some of those impacts are in your business. And so I'll get you to do our How Are We Local poster. Can everyone see the link that I added in the chat? Maybe you can tell me, Molly, because you joined later. It's sometimes, I don't know, Zoom has got this new thing where it said it's continuous chat. So if you join, you should be able to see it. But if you can't see it, there it is again. So there's a resource page there that has some links. If you're going to do a How Are We Local poster, you're going to have to download one. I don't know, maybe some of you are on your phone and you can do that later. But we'll get you thinking about who is local in your supply chain, and no matter how small your business is, I can guarantee that you spend money. And so even if you're really teeny tiny, we'll get you thinking through, you know, how your local purchasing is part of your local impact. And we'll take a quick break after that. I'll send you into breakouts to do that, probably just like with one other person in a breakout room. We're recording today's webinar so that we can share it with people who couldn't attend. But that part, which might be, you know, discussing more personal details about your business, is in a breakout room, and then it won't be recorded. And I'm going to cover consumer support for local. So why should you buy local marketing? Why be involved at all? And so we'll go through some of the recent studies around, you know, why do consumers actually care about local? And then, you know, I'll hand it over to Molly from CRISP, and she's going to give you some tips and tricks on digital marketing. You know, much of you telling your story about local and us marketing, you know, for you online is online these days. And even before COVID, we were sort of beating this drum about, you know, you have to get online. Even if you can't complete a sale online, you've definitely got to show up online. And so we have a partnership with CRISP for the Buy Local campaign. They do all our, you know, some of our collateral production for our partners and all our digital targeting online, and produce amazing results. And they're very practical. So that's why we partner with them, just around some tips and tricks, and then information on the CDAP program, which you might be interested in if your business can qualify for the Canada Digital Adoption Program, which is available right now. And then we're just going to run through some other tools other than the How Are We Local poster that you can use to communicate your impact, that we have as part of our Buy Local campaign. And then we'll run through a little bit about what is the campaign, what's happening a couple of weeks from now during BC Buy Local Week, and how to leverage it for your business. About that, I flipped back. So just quickly, Loco is a not-for-profit organization. I founded it many years ago, 14 years ago, and we have done many things over the years related to local businesses and connecting them and encouraging local purchasing. But mostly we've focused in more recent years around research, because we're the only ones doing it, had been up until recently. We've done research since 2013 on the impacts of independent business in the province. And that research has been used across Canada and beyond. As part of our research and campaigns, we do business engagement and impact measurements, and then we do campaigns and policy work, which, you know, we like to think of it as like we do the research and then we try to put it into action to make change. So this is just a little bit of a sampling of some of our research, the most recent of which is with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm going to give you some results on that today, but many of our studies are around the economic impact and where that comes from. So I'm going to dig in a little bit to where that impact is today. And then we've also looked at carbon impacts of local purchasing. There hasn't been that much work done around the environmental side of local purchasing and whether it's better or worse for the environment. And so we were excited to work with Vancity and a few other partners in 2021. And it's actually, the products we chose, we didn't sort of stack the deck to say, to pick products we knew would have a better impact. But we found that with the 5 products we looked at, that they had between 5 and 66% carbon reduction. So it's good news when you're buying local, that you're not only having a bigger economic impact, but a lower carbon footprint. And then some other work that we've done is around permitting and licensing delays. All small local businesses will complain about red tape. It's notoriously bad in the city of Vancouver. And so we thought, well, if we could quantify how much it costs the average business to wait for a permit, then we might be able to influence change. So we did a research report 2020, found that it costs $750,000 on average to wait for a permit or license, both to the business and to the local economy in terms of losses of employment and purchasing to local suppliers. And so that research has now been used to impact change at the city. It's been used by politicians and councillors and staff to try to make the process better for small business. We're also working on a new project that we're launching in 2024 around commercial affordability, because certainly in urban centers across BC, we're losing small businesses as we try to build affordable housing that's mixed use. And so we're concerned that the new developments won't situate the old small businesses that were displaced by the development. And so talking to developers and municipalities, leasing agents, et cetera, about launching a program in 2024 around that. So, often what we're doing is business engagement. This webinar itself is, at some level, business engagement, trying to get you to understand your impact and use the tools. We do impact measurement. I'm going to run you through one of our tools, the community impact assessment, we call it today, which really empowers businesses to learn about their impact and then use our sort of like third-party certified infographic to then go and talk about your impact, hopefully online. And then we've been running BC Buy Local campaign for about, I think today, this year is our 12th year in the province. And then this year we launched BC Amplify Local, which runs in October during Small Business Week in Canada. And that's focused around B2B suppliers. So the BC Buy Local campaign and BC Buy Local Week has traditionally focused on sort of consumer-facing businesses. And this BC Amplify Local campaign is more around businesses and their supply chain and who they work with, buying from other local businesses. And just not to confuse you, so LOCO is the not-for-profit organization, and then BC Buy Local is our campaign site. So we have 2 websites. One is for the organization, and then the other is sort of that campaign-facing site. We've done, policy work, as I mentioned, and trying to affect change to have a better enabling environment for small businesses to thrive. And one of the things that we're doing there is measuring the impact of buy local campaigns across the province, ours and others that might be in the north. I've had another campaign for several years. And so trying to measure the impact of what we're doing, and then also trying to assess what the challenges are to small businesses and local businesses across the province so that we can, take that into any policy work that we do. All right, let's hear from you. I would love to hear just your name and your business. And I think let's go around. I'm probably just going to call on you because I can see everybody. Just very quickly, your name and your business. Susan, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Susan Fisher, and my business is Susan Fisher Coaching and Consulting.
Love it.
So more on that later.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Okay, next to you on my screen, it says Blatt1.
Oh, hi. That's me. I'm Pat. I actually probably have a different kind of business than everybody else. We are an auxiliary run hospital gift shop, but so it volunteer run, but we have basically are running a retail store. So some of these things really help.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. I'll try to remember that you're Pat, not Blatt.
Yeah. Yes.
Tim, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everybody. I work for Key Self Storage. I manage the facility here on Skeena in Vancouver. We're opening up another one in East Vancouver, but we're locally owned, just one facility about to grow to two in a big area, and we service a lot of small businesses and consumers alike. Just
Great.
anxious to get involved in the community.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Catherine?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm having technical issues over here, sorry. So I'm Catherine Mellon. My business is called Digital Marketing Simplified, and I am starting to work with local businesses instead of on the internet, which has gone a little bit bonkers since COVID kicked in, and just to learn about you and some of the things that are influencing our local businesses.
Great. Good stuff. And where are you based?
Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay, great.
Oh, by UBC, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Always good to know who's out there because we always get people asking. So that's awesome. Ali, nice to see you.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for that Zoom meeting.
Great.
I'm director of the Soul Bite Food. We are producing plant-based food is one of our boxes, and the product is a vegan cabbage roll. The thing is that they are delicious, nutritious, healthy food. All of them is by BC approved. And we are social enterprise. So 50% of profit support charities dedicated to fighting hunger and combating food waste.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. I met Ali during our food producers campaign, and he's got a really great story. So, Grant. Oh, your sound is not working. It doesn't look like you're muted. So maybe, I don't know. Do you want us to come back to you, or do you want to just stick it in the chat? You're going to have to stick it in the chat to probably tell me what you choose.
There we go. So
there
my
you
name's
are.
Grant. I live in Squamish and I operate a martial arts club. We teach Aikido, and we have a fairly large community. We have 180 families in our club. So I'm just here to learn and explore and see what other people are up to.
Great. Thanks for being here. Yeah, Squamish Chambers has been one of our best partners on our campaign. So thanks for being here. Okay, Helena.
Hi, it's Yelena. Yeah,
oh, Yelena. I'm sorry. I took a chance. Yeah.
That's okay. I'm a marketing consultant. My company name is Resource Etc. Consulting, and I'm here to learn about how to help small businesses because I actually work with small businesses as a marketing consultant. So I want to learn how to help them, what the tools are, what the opportunities are, and just basically resources.
Great.
Thank you.
And is there another Tim, or is that your audio or something, Tim?
That may be my old audio. I was having technical difficulties.
Okay, no worries at all. Okay, so that's everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and appreciate you jumping in there. Okay, so we're going to go through the impacts of local business, and then I'm going to get you to think about what your impacts are. So because we're in the business of looking at the economic impact of local business, I'm going to cover those first. And they're kind of the more complex ones. And then I think the easier to grasp ones are the feel good ones, the social and environmental ones that we all, I know a few of you were talking about the connections to community and all of those, the softer side, but, we are sort of about the numbers. I think when I started LOCO, people were like, oh yeah, it's kind of a motherhood and apple pie sort of thing. And we were like, actually, it's economic development. So here's why. So we've partnered partnered with Civic Economics several times to measure the impact of local business. And the top four, I call them the 4 Ps. It's basically how I can remember them, but payroll is actually, of course, relates to jobs. Profits are really the profit that stays with local owners in the community. Profit is not a dirty word in our mind. We want businesses to make profit, and local owners reinvest that in either in their business or by spending money, often in the local community themselves. So we want to keep those profits local. One of the biggest impacts of local business is the payroll, the money that goes to employees through their paychecks, but also through any benefits that they might be offered. I know businesses, to attract labor, are increasingly offering benefits. And that's a big portion of what recirculates in the community as revenue that comes into local businesses like yours. Purchasing is sometimes a tough one, because I think smaller businesses are like, I don't buy anything, or I don't have inventory. So if you do have inventory, you can think about your inventory. It's not necessarily that it has to be local grown or local made, but it might come from a local supplier. So a BC owned or a Canadian owned supplier. I'm going to talk about our definitions of ownership later. And then philanthropy is basically charitable giving. It's anything that your business offers in terms of course, cash or in-kind services or product, but also your time. A lot of businesses I know are contributing time to various causes, helping to start things, and or partner on different charitable events and giveaways, things like that. And so we count all of that as part of your philanthropy, and as part of how your business, a big part actually of how your business creates more local impact than, say, a multinational that might be in your same sector. And then the 5th P is practices. So any practices that your business has, like social or environmental practices that are really a benefit to the community or society, the planet at large. Any questions on that? We're going to go through it a few times, so I'll get you to think about it. Part of the reason, just something that gets confusing during whether or not a supplier you use might be local, is this profits piece. That is part of the reason why we don't define public companies as local. So if you're working with one of the big 5 banks, those are public companies. They're listed on the TSX, and you might have your own reasons for working with them. That's fine. We're not saying every supplier you have is going to be local, but in terms of how much money can stay in the community from those banks, for instance, or another big supplier, is that because they're owned by shareholders, the profits are distributed and they're going everywhere. They don't have a chance to sort of stay with the local owner and be redistributed into the local community. Those bigger companies are also very limited on what they can do in terms of purchasing. They have centralized supply chains, and it's not that they're never doing local purchasing, it's just they're much less likely to do local purchasing. Same with payroll and things like that. I mean, I didn't hear the whole story, but I think it was this morning or yesterday on CBC, they were like, big 5 banks making record profits, also cutting employees, right? I mean, it's just like when you're part of that public system and you're a corporation, you are, not because you're evil, but just because you are constrained by the rules, you have to make a profit every quarter, and or cut something, and labor is a big cost. And so there's often a cost to just how good your business can be for the community when you're part of that economic model. And so that's just like to sort of drill that in, like that's why we don't consider public companies. So often people confuse like a public company that might be in their community as like my local Walmart or my local Staples. We call that like locale, like that's close to you geographically, but it's really not like a local business in terms of how we define it. So we've done several studies. The most recent one was in 2019, 2013. We looked at B2B suppliers. So we looked at office supplies, both local and multinational, and how much that means to your local community when you are supporting a local supplier. And in 2019, we looked at restaurants and retailers and found that it's local restaurants and retailers, when you average it out, their impact is 63%. They keep 63% of their revenue in the community with those four Ps circulating around, compared to only 14% for their multinational competitors. And so that's 4.6 times the impact. And here's the results of some of that impact are that if we shift 10% of spending in BC, if every consumer were to shift some of their spending towards local businesses or local grown or made products, that it would create more than 14,000 jobs in the province. And part of that comes from those four Ps, the profits that are often recirculated locally, the charitable giving that local businesses do. The study found that local businesses do 25 times the charitable giving that their multinational competitors do, and that's per dollar of revenue. And so, even businesses that make very little revenue are often doing a lot in their communities. And so that's where that big number comes from. Big corporations like to do big media events and trot out the big check. But, when you look at the impact on an individual basis, it's much higher for local businesses. And we also found that on average, local businesses circulate 31% of their revenue on local purchasing. So that, again, that's purchasing with other local businesses or buying local made or local grown products. We just did a bit of an update to this study with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. This was just released in October, and we're going to release some BC specific data during Buy Local Week in a couple of weeks. And this was the first pan-Canadian study. So we now have a figure for every province in the country of what their local businesses recirculate. It only looked at local retailers, so not restaurants. And that, it was up to CFIB. They just only wanted to do retailers for now. And then we might partner on other sectors soon. But it's even higher than the 4.6 times that we found. They found that 66 cents of every dollar spent at a local business, a local independent retailer, stays local compared to only 11 cents with a multinational. So it's actually 6.6 times, more than 2 times what we found with our study. And we also looked at, I would encourage them to include online shopping, because so much of spending is online, and all of our studies in the past were constrained by, it had to be a brick and mortar store. And I said, well, it's just not realistic. People aren't doing only brick and mortar shopping anymore. And so when we compare a local business with a brick and mortar presence to shopping with a big multinational online platform, it's 88 cents. Or it's eight times rather, the money stays in the community versus it's 8 times. I can't remember exactly what the percent, the amount is, the amount of a dollar, but it's 8 times. So 6 times for a brick and mortar store compared to a brick and mortar non-multinational, and 8 times if you're shopping at a brick and mortar local store compared to, one of the big platforms like Amazon. So it's a huge impact. And where it comes from is, again, this is just a different way that they've have to illustrate the 4 Ps, the profits to owners out of that 66 cents. This is looking at the local brick and mortar store. 19 cents is with labor, 11 cents is for services, 27 cents goes to goods purchased, and 3 cents of every dollar goes to charitable donations. So that adds to a huge amount. And then there's the comparative story. It's 11 cents for the multinational with a brick and mortar presence, and only 8 cents for online giants. So massive difference in terms of local spending. The study also found that consumers underestimate how much local businesses contribute and overestimate how much multinational brick and mortar and multinational online platforms contribute. So part of the reason for our campaign is really to educate around the impact. I'll tell you in a bit about, consumers say they care, so we need to really help them understand so that they can choose to shift some of their spending. Unsurprisingly, we found that I think it's like 95% of businesses are, contributing in doing some kind of charitable giving, whether it's donating goods, services, and time, or sponsoring teams and events. Almost everybody is doing multiple things. And so that also has a massive impact in the community. You know, BC and Canada, we have a really big charitable sector, nonprofit sector. And often, you know, local businesses are donating very like hyper locally, like to, you know, schools in their communities, teams in their communities, things like that. Whereas, you know, big businesses work with other like big charities where, of course, they have overhead, but less of the money is actually then circulating locally to the target audience. Also, one thing that I thought was interesting about this recent research is that small retailers that give back, they do more when they're doing well. So makes sense, I guess. But you know, if you're not doing so well, you don't have as much to give, time, money, all of it. So it's kind of this virtuous cycle. Like the better your business can do, the better the more you're contributing to your community, and that holds for all small businesses. Most also think that bigger businesses get preferential treatment from government. And so, you know, there's sort of an uneven playing field out there, which is unfortunate. You know, I think bigger businesses have lots of things working in their favor, but you know, they all small businesses are feeling like it's unfair. And then, as I mentioned, consumers are really misjudging, like by a lot, how much is recirculated by a local business. Here's on the left, the estimated share. This was an Angus Reid poll that was done as part of the study with CFIB. And it's like almost half is what they're thinking for local businesses compared to the 66% that's actually recirculated. Whereas it's the other side for multinationals with a physical location. They estimate that it's probably like about the same as a local business, and really it's only 11%. And then similarly for big online platforms like Amazon, they estimate it's still around 20% when really it's only 8%. So we have some work to do to educate consumers around what the actual impacts are. And then the last thing there is the other impacts that aren't all about the economic impact, the social benefits, the environmental benefits. You know, local businesses contribute to community character and social fabric. Those that have a brick and mortar storefront are, you know, providing gathering spaces. You know, I think a lot of us found out how much those businesses in our communities mean to us during COVID when they were closed and we didn't have those places to gather and run into friends and things like that. They also support local labor standards. So, you know, one of the things we found with the CFIB report is that in BC compared to other provinces, we recirculate more dollars in payroll, partly because we have a higher living minimum wage. That's the guess about why it is. So we know what the labor standard is here. We know what the minimum is that every, you know, worker needs to be paid in the province. In other places, we don't know that. And, you know, I'm sure you all know that labor standards are not so high in many other countries. There's also the social benefit, of course, of the charitable giving, that it's 25 times per dollar of revenue. That's a massive social impact. And then on the environmental side, similarly, local businesses are also held to local environmental standards. So, you know, when food is grown here or a product is made here, that it's held to Canadian environmental standards. That is not the case in other countries. Believe me, I worked in Pakistan and with industries for a while, and it's ugly with, you know, when you look at fabric or leather production and other places. There's reduced transportation and other waste in the supply chain, as we found out in our study in 2021 with Vancity. And then the other thing is that local businesses, not always, but often are concentrated in areas where they make for a more walkable community. You can kind of, if you need to drive, you can park your car and walk around to go to a few, which we all know with the bigger box model and the multinationals is not really the case. It's more based on sort of a drive to and park in a gigantic parking lot. So there's a benefit to that on the environmental side. Any questions on that before we jump into the exercise? Just feel free to jump in if you have anything or stick it in the chat. So one of the tools, this is one of the 3 tools. We're going to talk about the other tools later, but this is one of the 3 tools, and it's a how are you local poster. If you've got, does anyone not have the link to the resources in the chat? Not sure if you joined late or if you hopped off and jumped back on. Maybe Molly, you can put the link in there again. I thought Zoom had figured this out where if you came on, you would see all the chat before you, but I guess it's not done yet. So what we like about this poster is it demonstrates how your business is connected to the ecosystem of other local businesses. And so even if you're a very small business, a consulting business, we have a couple of you, I can guarantee you spend money. Yes, thank you, Susan. It will be, the presentation will be available, and we're recording so that you can have the recording afterwards. So what I like about this is sometimes I know y'all are a bit shy to say, toot your own horn and say, look at how we're great. And so but everybody wants to talk about the suppliers that they love. And so I know that maybe some of your suppliers aren't your favorite and you just have to work with them, but you know, I'm sure there's a few in there. Even if you have a very small business, you've probably got, you know, business cards, or you've probably got a website, or somebody who did your logo, or it can be anything really. And there's a link to a list of suppliers that might get your, you know, jog your memory about what you spend money. I can guarantee you probably have like insurance as a business. That's a big cost. And so even if you don't have 8, there's sort of 8 bubbles or flower petals, or however you want to see this poster. But we ask you to put your business in the middle, and then to think about your inventory, if you have inventory. A few of you might, and so your inventory suppliers, whether they are locally owned businesses or it's local grown or local made products that are in your inventory. And then the second category of is services. So that's your banking, your insurance, your waste management, your graphic design. I mean, a couple of you might be in the supply chain of other local businesses. Like if somebody is using you for digital marketing, then they could say, oh, I use that local owned supplier. So that's what we're asking you to do here. You can download a fillable PDF of this poster on our resources page. There's a link in the document I sent you. And so we're going to ask you to go into a breakout room with one other person, and just talk about your local impact, what you learned in the slides that I went through, and then try to take 5 minutes and just fill out the poster. If you're on your phone or something and it's like hard to do this at the moment, then just take a look and make a list of who you might want to highlight on there. And here are our definitions. Local owned, I mean, I could tell you why we chose these definitions, but really we just look at like more than 50% of the ownership is in BC if we're talking about whether the business is local owned. If it's not BC, then Canadian is next best. But as I mentioned, it's got to be a publicly owned company. So if you don't know and you want to Google it and you see like a symbol of a stock symbol, then it's a public company and we don't consider it local. And then local grown and local made. I mean, local grown is pretty obvious. It's either grown in the province or it's not. And local made is, something like Ali's product, Soul Bite Foods. That's a local made product. It also might include local grown ingredients. And so just thinking through some of those categories. I'm going to skip that one and just let you know about the supplier categories. So it might be accounting and bookkeeping. Might be your bank. If you're banking with a credit union, then that's a local bank. You might do car sharing. You might do, leasing or something with a local franchise of a car dealership. Construction and renovation, consulting, distribution, your IT services, if you have them, media, any advertising or anything like that you do, recycling, compost, and waste management services, repair and maintenance, technology, transportation, logistics, it goes on and on. So I'm going to ask you to do that exercise, and then we can take a break. If you want inspiration, we've got these are a few that have been done in person, like with Sharpie, and people put their logo in the middle, which I love. And so I'm going to put you into a breakout room and maybe just have like a quick chat meeting another person. And how many rooms will we need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And maybe Molly, you can go into one and I will include co-host to breakout room. So I'm going to take you off co-host and I'll send you into a room and then I'll skip it. Does that make sense? So do the poster, have a quick chat, and then maybe let's come back at I don't know, 5 to 1. So have a quick chat, do the poster, and then have a quick bio break, and we'll see you at 12:55. Okay, here we go.